Craig, did you head out to Anaheim this year? Did you go to the convention?
No, I didn't make it. I was
Are you one of those that's like I'm only going to the ones that are a quick drive away?
uh I've been to, like, I went to LA. Uh so I do go to some of them, but yeah, I'm finding, you're getting to the age where, you start looking at the rundown of what's being presented, how far away it is, how
Mhm.
much time away from your family or other commitments.
Yeah,
So
this was the
it's
first one I missed in a long time, and I don't think I missed it. And I get excited to like last year when we hung out together the whole time, stay in the same apartment area or whatever that setup was. It was a cool setup. Uh, but no, I don't know of anybody that really was going that I was really close with or anything. So I don't know. I'll try it next year. I think was it Chicago next year?
think so.
I think so. I'll
Yeah.
probably be Chicago. Of course, it's freezing cold out there. The one thing I do miss is when we went to LA. Oh, that was 5 or 6 years ago now. That was we went to the comedy club. What do they call it there? The Not the comedy cellar. What's the one in LA called?
Oh, the store?
The
Comedy
store,
store?
the comedy store. Man, that's an experience. That was a lot of fun. That was a lot. My face was hurting at the end of the night from laughing.
Yeah. I wish I had found that. Uh, I went to the South Carolina ECNL event
Mhm.
recently. Uh, I think I went out. I got there, went out to get something to eat Friday night. I think it was Friday night, and I was walking back to the hotel, and there was a comedy zone there, and it had the thing out saying live. It was the live mic night.
Yeah,
So I was like, oh, I'll just check it out. Uh, wasn't so great. I wasn't laughing.
those guys aren't professionals, huh?
Uh, yeah, they're still working on a lot of
Yeah.
stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's cool when you go to the big. I've been to both the cellar and the store, New York's and LA's, and it's funny. You'll see people like that guy was in a movie I saw. So you'll see people that are kind of recognizable, and some of them are just rolling out their best stuff to get laughs, while other ones are testing things. And I got a buddy that lives in Brooklyn, and he goes to the cellar all the time, and he says that there's every once in a while like, oh wow, he's just showed up to test 5 minutes, 10 minutes of material. It's like wow, that's pretty cool. That's an interesting lifestyle those guys live. It's an interesting lifestyle.
Yeah, I imagine it's hard to be disciplined
Yeah.
in that, discipline with your body, your health, and
Hmm.
sleep, and all that stuff.
Yeah, they have to be night owls. I have a hard time. I remember my coaching days with the club. You're on your way home at like 9 o'clock at night. It's not like you're swinging into Whole Foods and picking up some kale, and you're like,
No,
oh, okay, Wendy's is open. Let's do this. So
yeah,
uh,
exactly.
yeah,
Taco
those.
Bell, Wendy's, McDonald's.
Oh yeah, oh yeah, the club coach life. Well, look, it's good to see you here. I guess the last time we saw each other was down in Greer. So this is a cool podcast we've been doing. We've been talking to a lot of fun people, and it started as mainly a recruiting tool for people, a scouting tool, so people can jump on, hear coaches actually talking about things. Scott's done a great job of finding other people to put on here that are not necessarily college coaches, but it relates to the college game, and it's turning into a pretty cool thing. And so I'm excited you're on here. You're at a different place than CNU, Johns Hopkins, even though we're going to compete, we're going to play each other the whole 9 yards. But your recruiting is vastly different than mine, and your timeline's different than mine, and so it's good to get a different perspective out here. And so the kids that are listening to it can be like, oh, this is how I can end up at a Johns Hopkins or a similar school versus going to like a Christopher Newport or William and Mary. And so, one of the things I've noticed you say, and I want to kick off this way, is you talked about how difficult it is to get specifically into Johns Hopkins, but you're in a great conference, a Centennial. Most of the schools are really strong academic schools, similar to Hopkins, and you're kind of similar to those NESCACs and Ivy League schools. So, if you don't mind, kind of talk about not only how difficult it is to get into a Johns Hopkins, but what it's like to get into those schools in general, and what's your best advice for those kids trying to get into those super high academic places.
Well,
I know it's a loaded 1 hour answer there. So we're
Yeah.
just going to sign off here. Just let us know when you're finished. Okay.
Start off, I wouldn't have been anywhere close as a student athlete getting into any one of these institutions, but you know, high academic institutions, the best advice is to max out everything best you can. Leave everything open so you have as many choices as possible. What does that mean? Well, to maximize, you do the best you can on your test scores, and to maximize the highest level classes you can take at the school, which would be regarded as rigor, and to pop in A's in all those classes. Different academic schools have, and feel free to chime in here because this might have a tendency to wander all over the place. But in regards to support, there will be academic schools that give support, but the level of support is different for each institution. Some support will be able to pull in student athletes that may be a little bit below the academic range of a typical admit, and then there'd be some schools that don't do that. I've said before on other podcasts that we have a certain pocket that Hopkins operates in, and our support still is in that pocket. You can't get somebody outside of that pocket. But does our support help? It does help. I think MIT might have support, but it in my conversations with those coaches, it doesn't seem like their support has quite as much weight as ours. But
Greg, when you say support, you're talking about getting into the school, right?
yes,
Yeah, not while you're already there. So like here at CNU, the academic standard to get in as a student's one thing, but as an athlete, we might be able to get you in maybe at a lower standard. I mean, that's kind of what you're talking about there. And at Johns Hopkins, though, you got to get in there. There's no wiggle room, is what you're saying.
correct.
Yeah.
I would say, within the pocket that Hopkins usually pulls their accepts from, they also are denying a ton of people in that pocket.
Mm-hmm.
So I think when we recruit, we have to find people in that pocket, but our support, if it's in that pocket, is pretty solid.
Okay.
It's just that our support to try to pull somebody outside, underneath the pocket, into the pocket, doesn't really happen. But I would think like the Ivy Leagues have their supports that they're going to be able to get guys in that they just applied themselves. Most of them wouldn't get in, or a good number of them won't get in. I won't say most of them. I think the NESCACs have their bands, so they have A bands, B bands, and C bands, where the C bands would be student athletes that typically don't get into those institutions with, and this is me speaking, like somebody from the NESCAC may go, no, Craig's wrong about this, but this is just my gathering the information I've gotten. I'd say the B bands also would be very iffy at a NESCAC by themselves, but a B band supported is going to get you in at a NESCAC. An A band, I think, how I perceive it, an A band would be somebody who would typically get in on their own. So each of those schools have different levels of how many A bands they get, how many Bs, how many Cs they get, and that would probably be the griping point for those NESCAC schools.
Yeah, I've noticed the very high academics. You'll see, especially in the Division I world, you'll see a very high academic school, and you'll say, "How did that kid end up there?" And you'll see different types of support for sports. It's like, well, look, we have this excellent academic rigor, but we also want to win, and so we will have a cushion. We'll have a buffer where, okay, we'll let you have some kids that probably would not have gotten in here, and then going once they're there, they're going to have a ton of support to make sure that we can graduate these young guys and girls, and they're not affecting our academic situation here. They're still great students that go off and get great jobs, and there's definitely plenty of stories like that. It seems like at Hopkins, though, there isn't much wiggle room. I mean, I remember the few times that we've talked about it. I mean, you're not getting a lot of kids. I mean, it seems like why don't you talk about that, exactly what type of standard is it just to get into a place like Hopkins?
Well, you could Google JHU by the numbers, which would bring up, I think, data from 2 years ago, which will be kind of similar. With it, we'll give you stats like our 50% median is a 1510. That's an average, but I'd say that's kind of the number you want to aim for. It doesn't mean if you get that number, you're going to be accepted. That's just one piece of the academic puzzle that admissions takes into account. GPAs, there's no telling. When we go to tournaments and look at profile books and what GPAs are listed, a lot goes into a GPA, like Rigor.
Right.
What types of classes you're taking. You want to get A's in all those classes. Do people get in here without all A's? Yes. But I wouldn't say it adds strength to your CV if you have B's on your resume. So, obviously you want to max out that and make sure you're getting the highest grade you can.
So Scott, if you and I were to add our GPA and SAT together, we might be able to take some classes. No, it'd be close. It'd be close.
No, not if we're relying on me. I mean, it definitely would be. Yeah, I mean, I don't know where I'd go these days. Like, it'd be pretty tough to go anywhere.
I'd be in the same boat.
Greg, Dan on the women's side, of course, is a good buddy of mine. I've talked to him about this a lot. You guys do specific camps that are, created specifically for kids that are very, very high academic achieving kids, where the only staffs that are invited there are similar schools to Johns Hopkins and these NESCACs and the Centennials, like we've discussed. How critical are those camps, and what are they like for you in the process?
Are you just to clarify? Are you talking about our individual camps or the ones we go to?
Well, I guess yes, both. Your camp, of course, you would hope that a kid isn't signing up with below a 3.0 trying to go to Hopkins, but I know that like Soccer Masters and some of these other camps where I would imagine everybody there is very competitive academically, and you have a chance at all of them. Versus comparing it to like this weekend, you're going to go into the ECNL showcase down in Florida, and 90% of the kids there probably can't get into Johns Hopkins. So it's just you go to one event and everybody there's competitive versus the other event where, while they might be good students, they just can't, they only have a 4.2, 1400. They can't get in, So, what are those camps like? How important are they for you? And I mean, do you do a lot of your work there?
Yeah, they're very important for us. And I'd say, yes, first and foremost would be our own individual camp where and we do bring in a few coaches. Most of them have similar academic institutions, but they're mostly coming for us. It's our camp, so we have a pretty good idea that all the kids that we're looking at that camp, if we like them, they would also be interested in us. Soccer Masters is also important for us. The staff they put together are all very high academic institutions. And so the kid you get is kind of very much suited for what we're looking for. There'll be Ivies, there'll be, high, like Stanford or high academic institutions on the Division I level. That helps us in a way that it might bring some kids that are just thinking of those schools at the time. And so if we can be there and keep tabs on those guys, and if they don't get into like the Ivies or their dream of playing at those high academic D1 institutions, that's a good place for us to be to wind up, waiting for those guys to kind of fall out of the tree. So, yeah, I Soccer Masters we quite often have players there that that come to us. I got some sort of loop back where I was getting echo.
Heard that too.
Is it okay now?
So far.
Okay.
Sounds
Let's pause for 1 second. I'm gonna try something. That didn't work. Okay. It's not what I
Sounds
thought.
okay at the moment.
Okay. All right. I'll edit that out. Okay, cool. Sorry, interrupt you guys.
I think we finished up that.
Yeah. I want to jump into the financials, of course. So, a lot of the schools that we're talking about, they're not exactly cheap, and to assume that everybody's going to go in there and pay full is a big ask. What is the process like at a Hopkins? And maybe you could speak on, maybe the Centennial. You compared notes with those guys a little bit, but what's it like on finding out how much money you can get as through FastFire, through all of your financial aid stuff that you guys do? What does that look like for you? What's the timeline look like so these kids can get an answer before they commit to saying yes or no?
Well, one, Michael Bloomberg came in, man, I want to say it was 2018. I should know this. But he gave $1.8 billion to Hopkins, and that money, and it's funny how people go around and go like, yeah, he gave $1 billion, right? And I go, yeah, I wish I could just easily dismiss the $0.8 billion.
Right.
But yeah, that money went to, we would often gap student athletes, and I remember one time there was a kid from Mississippi, 6'3", could play every position. Nobody knew about him. And what we gave compared to, and the deal was his whole family was going to Harvard. He was going there, but if he didn't get in, he was coming to us, and he got deferred early action. So I was like, okay, it's us, right? And he was like, sorry, coach, but Northwestern gave me $20,000, and we didn't give him anywhere close. Like it was very bad, like the difference. And so we lost him. And but since then, with the money that Bloomberg gave, we don't gap anymore. So their EFC or their financial read that comes back, we meet that. And since then, that's been, very few people have given me the excuse of I can't afford it. It does happen from time to time. But before then, that was one of the higher excuses of why we would lose somebody,
right?
Which was cost. And so you have to kind of, talk them through, investing in their own, in themselves, that it is worth the money, but it is quite a chunk or a financial hit up front.
Right.
But as we go down the kind of recruiting timeline, we'll go out, we see you, either we get some interest through email, or we go out and see you, we like you, and then we're going to try to find out, one, if you can get in, and two, if you can afford it. We're mostly concerned with the can you get in piece, but we do direct them towards the financial aid estimator, and if they fill that out correctly, they will get a good idea of where they stand for the next year if they were to commit. Hopkins rarely makes big jumps in their tuition, so at the max, it's typically only increased by like 1,000. So there isn't a big jump from year to year that would make a major change between what you would see on that financial aid calculator and what you would expect if you got admitted.
You mentioned this Bloomberg guy. Do you happen to have his cell phone number? Maybe he could reach out about donating to seeing you. It doesn't have to be 1.8, but maybe something similar.
Yeah.
I don't know if you have his cell.
I wish I did.
That guy even have a cell phone? I mean,
He shouldn't. I'm sure he has something.
yeah.
I have a bit of a complaint about that. I mean, he could have shaken 200 million more out of his couch probably and made it an even two
How
instead
did he
of,
round up there? What was going on?
come on, man.
Some sort of tax cut.
Yeah.
I do.
I don't.
What's the other part? What's your timeline look like? I mean, I've talked to kids where they were looking at like a University of Chicago was the last guy I talked to, and Chicago's like, no, we wrapped up. We have to because we have this. We have a date. These kids accepted by a certain date, and it's significantly earlier than majority of the Division III world and a lot of Division Ones. So what's it like for you guys, and maybe how does that compare to the rest of Centennial?
I think the Centennial, we might not be similar to a lot of the Centennial. Uh, we might be. I mean, some of them we are, but we don't have rolling admissions, and there's a few Centennial schools that do have rolling admissions, which means they can take somebody in. I I don't know how far rolling goes, but I've typically heard that rolling admissions can take somebody pretty close to preseason.
Yep.
For us, the timeline would be like currently we're out to go recruiting. The 24 class is pretty much seen and located, and we might be waiting to see what will happen with regular decision. We got 2 guys that applied regular decision. It's very difficult to get into regular decision, so if they get in, great, but it's very hard. So we'll see what happens. So right now we're heading out to kind of get more info on our 25 class. So this through the winter tournament scene and recruiting scene, we're basically trying to get a lock on the next class that is coming up. So that would currently be the 25 class. And so we'll start getting some ideas on guys and info, but the real movement won't happen till like July 1st is when we can start submitting some information to admit how they read those student athletes and their admissibility. Through that, if it's extremely positive, we can move pretty fast to try to lock them up. It's rare to be extremely positive. If it comes back in the middle area, then now we're keeping a conversation. We're talking through where they stand with us, the gamble that it might be in terms of going early decision or early decision 2, and where they see us. If they see us number 1, then maybe they want to apply early decision and see what happens. And for us, we have early decision 1. Typically, the deadline date for that is November 1st, and you would receive your notification as to whether you got admitted or not, or deferred, typically around December 13th, 12th, 14th, 15th, or something like that. Then we have an early decision 2. The deadline for that is usually the same deadline as regular decision. You're just clarifying whether you're going to apply regular decision or early decision 2. Early decision 2 will get a confirmation or their notification of their status. I want to say mid-February, mid to third week in February, whereas regular decision is not going to find that out until into March, beginning of April.
That's pretty late.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So ideally for schools like us, we want to know what our class will be. To have that happen, early decisions really where we're pushing our recruits, because if they go early decision, they get in, we know they're coming. Right. Regular decision flips it in that if they get accepted, we're usually waiting around to see, you know, what that student athlete is going to do, because they're usually waiting for Ivies or some other schools. They want to see what all their results come back, and then they'll make the decision. So that puts the coach in a waiting game, not really sure what's going to happen, and you could get stuck not filling. We have a certain roster limit, and it's typically 28. But if we're waiting around for too many regular decision candidates, we could get stuck at not using two of those spots and be like at 26 or 27 and not maximized our recruiting for our team.
Yeah, that's definitely not ideal. Why? What is the Johns Hopkins reason for your roster limit?
Title IX, size of school.
Size of school is what I thought was going to be the main.
Yeah. I mean, we have a lot of sports, and we have a lot of big sports as well. So, you know, I
know
Title IX is my answer. It might not be the correct answer, but yeah, I think we have to keep our roster at a certain size because of that.
And you also have a different animal than most of us. I mean, only a couple of you guys have this, but you have a Division I sport, on campus. Well, wait, 3, right? Is it 3 sports?
It's just one. Well, it's men and women's lacrosse, but
not field hockey, correct?
No, field hockey is Division.
So men's and women's lacrosse are Division I, and so yeah, that's a weird animal, of course, that you guys have to fight. We were just out of Colorado this year, and their women's soccer team, and they also have ice hockey, are both Division I. The rest of it's Division III, and yeah, what's that relationship like? What is it like having a completely different animal? Of course, they're also really good. I mean, Johns Hopkins at the top of the Division I world too for lacrosse. So what is that like? What's the relationship there?
Relationship's good. I don't really see it as anything different.
Good.
The difference would be how many people show up for the games. The difference might be, I mean, there are plus side of the difference is that they're very well known. Hopkins is very well known for the lacrosse program. It's basically like the lacrosse program in history. And the Hall of Fame used to be here on campus. It's now moved a little further north to get more space. Tours used to come through all the time. I still think, teams bring their young athletes by because the Hopkins name in lacrosse is such a high regarded name. And with that comes some benefit of like Under Armour really wanted us involved with them. So I think without the lacrosse piece, would Under Armour be wanting us as strongly as they do? Maybe not, but it definitely feels like a benefit. So I think Hopkins it certainly has a strong reputation academically, but I think the reputation that Hopkins has in lacrosse also helps us department-wide as well.
Do you have as nice of an office as those head coaches?
I would say no, because they have a nice view. I have I have a decent office. I have a roomy office, which some other coaches have been ogling, but no. I mean, yes, they have a nice building. It overlooks a field. I'm in what I call a little dungeon with no windows, but no.
Maybe Bloomberg can help us out in that regard as well. Knock a couple walls out over there.
I'll see if I'll send them a note. See if we can expand if we could get the offices on top of the building so we can overlook the field, that would be good.
That'd be golden.
Craig, you obviously are dealing with a lot of high achievers, and we've kind of joked, that we definitely couldn't have gotten into Hopkins, much less a lot of other schools back in our day. But talk about just dealing with the stress levels that these kids face, and just a different academic rigor maybe than a lot of student athletes face as they head off to college, and just dealing with kind of the culture of, what the school is and where these kids will be 4 years after you get them.
Right. Well, one, Hopkins won't let in somebody who would fail here. So the student athlete that gets in here can handle it. Could we handle it? No.
Right.
But they can. And so it's tough. It's not easy. The month of October is difficult because, they say, okay, it's midterms, and you would think midterms last for a week, but no, it lasts for 4 weeks. And so they really have to be masters of their time. I've had maybe in the course of 16 years, 5 to 7 guys that okay, your GPA is not where I think you want it or where we want it, so let's have discussions about that. We'd meet once a week, and every time it was time management. When they would come in and say, I just don't have time to do this or do that, and when they actually give me their schedule on a spreadsheet and I see that like they're waking up at 10 a.m., I've found the gap.
Yeah.
And you usually can find those gaps. You can't mismanage your time here. You can't be playing Fortnite or Call of Duty or whatever. You can do it if you manage it. You set a time for it. Going to spend 30 minutes playing it, but it can't be the fill in the gap of everything, the escape to stress or anything like that. You got to take care of business, and if you take care of business, you'll be fine. We do have sometimes, new players right after the season. They also have a little bit of adjustment because the time they've plugged in for soccer is now wide open, and how you fill it, you can get lost and open up the can of worms where you don't fill it. It becomes Fortnite time or whatever time, and that blends into more time of undisciplined structure, and that can snowball unless you take some accountability and set up that time and don't let it run away from you. But we usually get on the guys to make sure that doesn't happen. We also have the other issue that happens is if a high school hasn't challenged, if you have a particularly bright individual that hasn't been challenged by their school, and they can, because of that, they're not sharp. They can cram the night before a test to ace a test, no problem. What are we talking about? And then they come here and think they can do the same thing, and they get smacked in the face with that.
Chance.
Yeah, there's no chance you're going to cram the night before the test and do well here. You're going to have to stay up with the notes, stay up with the lectures, do the work that's given to be fine here.
Well, and that's fantastic advice for, all schools. You're obviously at the top there, but that's the same holds true for all the other schools. Most schools are on the same level where they're like, well, we're not going to bring a kid in that can't study here, but they're, the biggest difference is you're not underneath your mom and dad's household anymore. You don't have this crazy schedule where it's from 7 o'clock in the morning until 2:30 in the afternoon. And then you have high school practice, then club practice, and you come home. And your free time's incredible. I remember when I was a player, and as soon as the season ended, I didn't know what to do with myself. I was an early riser. I took like 8 and 9 o'clock classes, and I had a break before practice. We practiced at 3. And then I would train, and then I'd go home and do my thing or whatever. And once that went away, once the soccer went away, and I was home at like 10 o'clock in the morning, and the rest of my day was over, man, that was the hardest part of college for me. I had to figure out what to do at that time. It was so easy to say, oh, I'll just do it later. And then later it ended up being 10 o'clock at night, and you're like, you haven't even started yet. And that's where you'll see, we've had kids come in, get a little bit of academic money, and next thing you know, they're on academic suspension or probation immediately. And it's 100% for what you just talked about. They didn't take care of their free time. And that free time really opens up, especially for a freshman that has never experienced this before. It's really tough to adjust that first Monday after your season's over and you turned in all your gear and you don't have anything to do with soccer anymore. And all of a sudden you're just a student for the next few weeks until finals roll around. Yeah, that's an eye opener for a lot of kids. It really is. And I mean, it's true everywhere. I mean, even at not as good a places as Johns Hopkins, it is very true there as well.
Yeah,
And
for
I
sure.
want to shift gears a little bit here. You and I chatted a little bit about it. I actually watched your Babson game, so I don't want to like any Babson fans here. Might be opening up some wounds there, but that was awesome to watch. It really was. I thought it was like I remember thinking to myself, like, man, that is beautiful D3 right there. That is what I love to see. Just a little backdrop. Correct me if I'm wrong, but you guys were down 2 late in regulation, scored 2 to tie it. You can maybe fill in the blanks on the timing there. And then you go into overtime. We're only in year 2, I think year 2 or 3 of the overtime rules changing where it's not golden goal. So you go down again in overtime, and then you guys scored 2 goals in the last, was it like 2-3 minutes to win the game? Oh, what a game, man. It was so fun to watch. I don't know if you want to fill in the gaps there. That was fun.
Yeah. I when the game was over, I must have said 10 times, did that just happen? I've been around the game probably, I mean, coaching wise, getting close to in between 25, 30 years. And yeah, I've never experienced anything like that. We started off the game typical for us. If we can set up our control, I feel pretty comfortable. Then it's just finding the way through to get the chances, and I felt like we were doing that. But they made the decision to play one of their better players, who's this huge kid. We scouted him; he was playing center back, but they showed up playing target forward against us, and like he was a line like the his rib cage was a barrel. Like the thing was huge. So he's just this massive guy, and they caught us. It was a big ball that came. It looked my center back was in the right position, but then as the ball bounced and he took a jump, uh, the guy came in and put a shoulder on him, all perfectly legal, and kind of moved him out of the way. Had an open shot. Now we're down 1-0. Okay, that's not great, but I still think we have a good part of the play, so we should be able to get back. And then, honestly, and I admire everybody who can pull out every little detail of things. The second goal eludes me. I'm sure it's a free kick goal because it seems like we gave up probably 80% of the goals we gave up were set piece goals. I think that's what it was. It got floated over and nobody really dealt with it and was put in. So now we're down 2-0.
Is this all in the first half? When was the
Yeah.
score 2-0?
Yeah, it's first half.
Okay.
And also my mind blurs between the Babson game and the Middlebury game, because the Middlebury game I thought was going to end the same way. In that, okay, they go up 2-0 and we're battling back, or we're going to score late, and we were getting chances like crazy late against them as well. So I can't remember the Babson second goal, but yes, we second half. I think we had worn them down a bit with our style of play. They're up 2-0, so they're also in the mindset of just protecting that, seeing if they can get that third, but not overloading it overcommitting to try to getting it. So that gave us a little bit of a foundation to set up our attack and get repetitions in the attack. And yeah, it was the first one I think came into Griffin, received it. They overcommitted, so then he just spun and hit it upper 90. And so, all right, it's 2-1. We feel like, okay, we got a chance. And then, wow, I'm remembering Max's goal, which was, it's crazy because it came in to one of their center backs. He's standing on like just inside the 6. And most of the people are standing there and looking, but Aiden Dunphy, who's playing a 10 for us, comes in and pressures him. And he had done this a few times where we scored these goals because people freak out because he's so active and comes and pressures them. So he comes running up, and they see him first instead of finding the ball. And then as they go to find the ball, they look down and like half kick it with their heel out to the side. And then Max just kind of flings at it, pops it in, which ties it up. And then we go to OT.
Well, hold on. Before you go to OT, the coach in me needs to know what you said at halftime. I mean, was it? I mean, I never mind. I'm out of the way. What did you say at halftime?
At halftime, I just saying, basically we were controlling the game. So like the opportunity, and we had missed some opportunities as well. The keeper came up with a lot of good saves. So the chances were there. So it wasn't like we were in a game struggling to generate anything. It was there. We just had to remind them that when we get to those moments, it just takes one to put it in to start getting the feeling that we can get this game back. And that's what happened. There was a point in the second half where I switched and eliminated a midfielder to add a forward. And then we actually, again, this blurs between Middlebury and Babson because it actually, how it lined up, we were going in the same directions at the same time, trying to get the same result. So in one of those games, I know I went man-to-man in the back.
Yeah.
Just to take the risk, add an extra attacker. And yeah, it panned out. I going back to the Babson game though, that third goal they got, I think, yeah, it's similar to, if anybody, I know you know this because we talked about this, but it's similar to Rowan's game last year against Stevens Tech.
The double post.
Yeah, the double post that they called a goal that physically can't happen.
Mm-hmm.
And I told Scott, man, I feel bad for him because if I were in that spot, I don't know how I'd handle it. And
Right.
So a similar situation happened in the Babson game in that they had gotten down deep into the corner, but it was so deep that the keeper's in a good position. It would be very hard to score anything from there. But they had a runner running late coming into the middle in front of the goal, but we had a guy in great position in front of him. And the Babson player just took off for him and took him down. And so our guy's down, out of the play, they pass it to the guy, and he taps it in. And the ref is right there. He's right on top of it. And so I'm going livid, going like, you need to explain to me, like, what just happened. And he's like, yeah, I just saw that as incidental contact. And if you go back and look at the video, the guy's running, looking at the ball. Then he looks to see what he has in terms of space. He sees our guy in good position, and he speeds up. He sees him. He speeds up to go at him, and then takes him out. Like it's not a shoulder-to-shoulder charge. It's like shoulder into the middle of his back. Take him down, and then it's just an easy goal. So I'm livid. Thankfully, I didn't go too crazy, and
you had another game to coach.
Yeah. And so, yeah, we got the third goal back, and then,
It's like 30 seconds later, wasn't it? You got the winner.
Yeah. I think it was like 1 minute and something, 1 minute and 20 seconds or something like that.
Yeah. Awesome.
And we got it. And yeah, we were exhausted. Coming off the field, I was like, and I had watched scouted Middlebury. They played before us, and they got up 2-0 fairly early.
Sats people.
Yeah. Well, I don't know. I don't know if they did, but the game wasn't fast, right? There was a time one of their top players, St. Louis, had the ball, and he was kind of like standing on it with the defender, very cautious because he's very fast and strong and physical. And the defender was like, if he gets even a little bit on me, I won't be able to recover it. So he's being very cautious about it. But none of his teammates were coming to help him. So St. Louis was just standing there with the ball like, okay,
right,
we can just hang out here until you make a move. And that guy wasn't moving. So it's like, and that's a lot of the play was just slow enough that I thought Middlebury was in a much, much better position than us.
Sure.
Who was crawling off the field after the Babson game.
Well, and talk about a difference. I mean, for the second half and 2 overtimes, that's 65 minutes of you chasing a game. You were down that entire time, really. I mean, other than maybe 10 minutes total at the very end of the first half and at the end of at the end of second half and at the end of overtime. And so where you were tied and then you were only winning at the very, very end. And so, the demand on your body and the boys that you had on the field, I mean, you were sending everything forward. You weren't even thinking about, well, I need to be ready for tomorrow. You were thinking, well, I need to get to tomorrow. And that's definitely difficult. I wonder if one day in the future they're going to give us the same thing they're giving the Final Four and give that mandatory day off each weekend and just play Friday, Sunday. I know that all of us coaches would be unanimously agreeing to that. I'm definitely a big fan of that, but that's another conversation, I'm sure. But well, moving forward, how's it looking for next season? What do you what's your outlook? I'm sure you got a tough schedule again. What's it look like for you guys?
Well, we're still seeing what's going to happen with our class. I think we missed a spot or two that we're going to have to wait and see with the transfers, what happens. So we're still waiting on that. We feel like we've got a solid pool that we're looking at from that. I'm loving the rule change where we have more days in the spring.
Oh, yeah.
And so we've actually already started, and we're going to go like 2 days a week. Yeah, I'm looking very much forward to that time to be able to, because during the season, it's all about management. Like
Right.
you do a lot of stuff in the preseason to try to set like tactical knowledge and catch everybody up, but really in the spring, I find is the best time to work on more and more tactical content to upload that when you're not thinking game. You have a lot of space to introduce these concepts and work on them and develop them. So, yeah, I'm looking forward to the fall, but right now I'm looking forward to the spring, and we'll end up playing Loyola, Maryland, early in April. So we'll see how the spring goes at that point.
Yeah, that's such a good point. In the fall, once you're in the meat of the season, you get maybe a day a week where you don't have a game the next day, or you didn't just have a game the night before. And, a day after a game, it's not a get after a day. Usually it's a recovery. Maybe you played 6, 7, 8 guys, 90 minutes, and so you probably aren't even using them. And then if you did that on a Thursday after a Wednesday game and Friday, well, I'm playing Johns Hopkins the next day. I'm only preparing to go try to play Johns Hopkins. I'm not developing the bottom half of my roster at all. My focus is on trying to beat you guys. And when you get into the middle of the season, that's a huge chunk. I'd say probably 75% of your season is recovering from a game or getting ready for the next game, and not as much of an emphasis on development. And you're 100% correct. I'm looking forward to these extra days, and I've already kind of circled, like, I think this guy can help us. He didn't in the fall. We need to we're going to coach the mess out of this kid. We're going to teach him a bunch of things, and the guy ahead of him was an all-region kid or whatever. He's gone, so now we can really give this guy the lion's share of minutes, and he'll play the whole William and Mary game for us, and that's huge. I mean, it's such a big jump, big advantage for us. I'm so glad we get the extra days. I hope we get maybe an extra game or two as well. I mean, you get to play Loyola, but I'd love to come up and play you guys as well, get something on film, and then go play William and Mary. And, my prep for William and Mary is playing my alums, and that ain't exactly the same type of competition. So, yeah, we could use a couple more games, but I'm definitely happy they gave us more. That's it's going to be great for the boys.
Same here. Yeah. Beggars can't be choosers, but yeah, next step would be to get one or two more games in the spring.
Even if it's just one date, and it would take it out of my practice days. It's like, all right, like one of my 24 days, I have to sacrifice it for a game. I would do it in a heartbeat. So it's not like it's no extra work. It may be an extra cost to hop on a bus, but that could be an institutional decision.
You got anything else, Cheese?
No, I mean, Craig and I see each other on the recruiting trail all the time, and it's funny how it is. I mean, we're highly competitive guys. We play against each other, but I mean, we've talked about recruiting a ton. We've sat down next to each other or called each other about players, and it's interesting how it works. It's a small world, the coaching world. Craig and I never really talked or anything, and now all of a sudden we're going to the convention together because Dan's a common proponent of ours, and we're all hanging out, having a few beers, just shooting the bull. It's a fun world, it's a fun environment, and I've enjoyed chatting with Craig about players, and we've talked about these transfers. Actually, he's mentioning a couple. I'm like, yeah, they were on campus with me too, and they're visiting Craig next week, and so we fight over those guys a little bit, but other than the 90-minute games, it's super friendly. It's a fun environment, fun job.
Craig, are you finding success with the transfer portal with you guys, or is it how does the standard change at all to get a transfer in versus a freshman?
There's two different types of transfers that you would think about right now. Because of COVID, this will be the last year where everybody that was in college during COVID has a COVID waiver. And so, typically we're out looking at the portal for regular transfers, and they would be applying obviously to our undergrad school, but the grad transfers or the ones with the COVID waivers would be transferring to grad schools. So each school operates with their own admissions department, basically, for grad schools. And so we just go, yeah, we're interested. Good luck, and tell us if you get in. And I think depending on the school, depends on how tough it is to get in. There's schools that ain't going to happen. And there's schools like, okay, like if you go there, I think we got a good chance.
Right.
And for regular transfers, I think it's about the same. One, it's very difficult to transfer if you're a freshman, to transfer here in between your freshman and sophomore year, because students here are required to live on campus their freshman and sophomore year. So in order for somebody to transfer in, there actually has to be a bed open. And that means people have to transfer out. And some do, I'm sure, but not many.
Right.
Not many at all. So those spots can fill up immediately, which would make that extremely competitive. And then, but sophomore to junior year, you live off campus, so they don't have to have a bed for you. And I find, it's a little bit easier to work with a transfer that is a sophomore looking to come in and be a junior.
Cool. Cheese, you got anything else?
No, that's it. Craig, keep an eye on my guys down there in Florida, okay?
Okay. Give us your list.
Yeah, that's right. I can do that.
Craig, can't thank you enough for coming on. I know we've talked about it for a little while now, so I'm glad it finally happened. And I have to drive up to Baltimore and see you and Dan, say hi. So really appreciate it.
I'll hop in the car with you, Scott.
All right, let's do it.
Good trip.
Sounds
Cool.
good.
We'll go
Happy to
see
have you.
We'll go
I'm
see
sure
lacrosse.
Dan's got some food marked out somewhere for us to go.
Yeah, tell him we said hi. It was good seeing you, Greg.
Will do. Take care, guys.
Thanks, Greg. See you.